Two reasons for this meeting for me. One is to share with the community what we've done historically over the past 5 years or so, what we want to do going forward for the next 5 years to 2025. And then the final piece is to listen to people. Probably have to do this again, I want your input. There might be things that we didn't think about as a staff that we think the community needs, but if we have people in the room that say, oh, that's wonderful, you're going to do this, but what about that? And we never thought of that. I want to know what that might be, and I want us all to have a discussion about taking that vision forward and helping us get it through town meeting or whatever appropriate channels to get that project or item purchased and funded. So I thank everyone for coming. Everybody knows Becca. Dan Gales with the school department. If you don't know Dan, he's their financial director. So I'm glad he could come. So there'll be pieces about the school department that I won't have detail on tonight because they haven't, the school administration hasn't come back with the principals and everybody else. So they do their stuff in September and October. So there could be holes in this, and Dan will do his best to fill in those gaps. So we'll start with this basic slide presentation. I'll have to go between my glasses every once in a while. I'm not going to read to you what's on the slides. I'm just going to tell you that a plan that for our capital, we have to be flexible. We have to realize that we do things internally, operationally to protect our assets. We have preventative maintenance on vehicles. We have preventative maintenance on buildings. We walk roofs of buildings that are walkable. We fix leaks as they go. We figure out what those cost of fixed leaks on roofs are, for example, and then we start to plan when a replacement might happen. So there is a replacement for our gym roof in the municipal center, for example. We fix leaks as we go. It might cost us $2 grand a year to fix those leaks. There's a point where you just can't fix them anymore, and we will replace that roof. But I think there's been a history in this town of extending the useful life of anything. And you two up there can talk about fire apparatus and DPW vehicles that you've gone way beyond the useful life. We're finally getting on track to not do that. So we've been agile and trying to figure out how to fix those things and extract the most out of every vehicle we have. All of the things that we're going to talk about are subject to town meeting approval, as everybody here knows. Things that have to be excluded, debt needs to be both a ballot and town meeting. Doesn't matter what the order is. A lot of people get confused about that. Doesn't matter if it's town meeting first or a ballot question first. And then finally, if we are going to borrow anything inside the levy or outside the levy, that's going to take a 2/3 majority. So just points that you might all know, but for the people who watch this, they might appreciate knowing that. The levy limit set by town meeting, every time we set a budget, they vote on the levy limit. We are at the levy limit right now. There's no more capacity. So if we had capacity, like in Westboro, for example, our neighbors, they have capacity, they can borrow money, provided they have 2/3 of a vote, and they can use that excess levy to pay down the debt service. We don't have that luxury because everything's used for operations. So what we do is we try to generate through the operating budget free cash through both savings and turnback from every department across the board, which is about 0.5% of the total $63 million budget, and revenue we take in that we didn't anticipate. So that's been the plan from the beginning of time, right? You guys have been here longer than me. But for 11, 12 budget cycles, it's always been capital is what is left over at the end of the fiscal year, certified free cash, and then we do capital. Well, remedial for most of you folks, I get it. But you can all read this definition of a capital plan. It's pretty straightforward. That's what it has to be. It has to have a useful life. It has to be over 10,000. So we set out these parameters. We went to the whole capital summit with staff. They had a definition in which to work to put these things in. I will tell you that one staff that's not here put down a lot of things that are probably operational, so there isn't a lot of items there. And we haven't reconnected with that person to say, we'll build these into the budget as we go because they don't fit this definition of capital, for example. So historic perspective on capital from 16 to 19, we spent $4 million in the capital plan. This doesn't include DPW, library, fire, police, or any of those type of things. You guys come right on this side, it'd be great. 2.2 of those dollars were spent on the school department, 619 spent on fire. A lot of the fire stuff that we're buying now, we are using a percentage of free cash right off the top to pay debt service on leases. The leases run from 5 to 7 years in length. But I believe we have 2 now, one's in swing. We have the vehicle in service, another one in the building. So we're planning for those lease purchases as well. And then Public Works, $531,000. The remaining $860 is split between every other town department. So they can be the pole pads, they can be cemetery roofs, or additions to the cemetery facility down in South Grafton, for example. So there's things that we've done that this kind of breaks out what has been approved in the past 4 years and going forward. So 20, this is remedial as well. This is everything town meeting voted on. The pumper tanker is there, the replacement of engine 3 for the fire department, that's the first lease payment I just talked about. So this is what you've already voted on, so you all know this information. All the pieces of the school department, they create an A, B, and C list in terms of what they need, and everything in their A list for schools was funded. They obviously had a lot more than what was on this list, and you'll see that on the next slide. So the results of the capital summit, we know where we are in 20. Everything in green was funded, fire, police, sewer department, school departments in yellow, because we only partially funded them. We funded just their A-list items and really nothing else. So there's like $1.3 million in that list. And then the municipal center, $60,800. And then these are just the cumulative numbers. If you did the math all the way down, taking out 20, since it's partially funded in fiscal 20 right now, it's probably $17 million from now to 2025. That's the ask. So, and this is a rolling list. What should happen, by way of example, the school department in yellow, you can clearly see it wasn't fully funded. 21, it has only $631,000. We don't know, and Dan might answer this, what will roll from 20 to 21 that wasn't funded that'll inflate that number in 2021.
Yeah, so a majority of that will push to 21, so 2021 will be closer to 2 million. Because we had about 271,000 of that 1.6 is funded.
But, were there things in the 1.6 that didn't get funded in capital that you might have dealt with operationally?
It was $145,000 item.
$145,000? Okay. So you can see that quickly as we go through, they'll be pushing those things through. So you just need to confirm with Rebecca what that number should be and what those projects are. Because when we get to the next slide, the meat of it all, you'll see all those pieces. We don't have yours because we didn't have that conversation until now. So you'll see 21, 22, 23. The numbers total are fairly significant. They'll be a little off from what the slide is once we put school department's numbers in there. So we'll go through in detail what each of these departments requests for by year. So we go to the next one. So fire department, we all know we did a study for the fire department. So there are things that we're going to have discussions about how we fund those. So one of the vehicles that they need to purchase is $2 million. And that's a pretty important piece of equipment. By the time we get to the end of its useful life, it'll be 25 years old, which is probably 5 years beyond its life. Yeah. So those things are going to have to be excluded debt, because when I mentioned before about the levy limit being at its level or at its capacity, we won't have any room to finance it. So we'll have to vote it. We'll have to have a debt exclusion to fund something like that. How did they fund it last time, Chief?
They got Power?
Yeah.
They did lease purchase.
All right, so they did. So was it
Back
$1
in
million?
2001.
Was it $1 million back then? Do you know?
It was just under 700,000.
Wow. It was cheap, shit, too.
Yeah.
That was,
No, it's not a 55 foot. 75 feet?
95.
95. The 55 won't be purchased. That's in the EDR report. department did their analysis about what surrounding communities could help for meeting that need, and they went with that replacement vendor 3. It was on the cost line. So here you can see the items by department, the request and the explanation, the funding sources, and then the estimated amount. These estimated amounts are our best guess from what other communities are paying for similar things today. So until we actually go out to bid or solicit quotes, we had to put a number for our best guess. It's not an exact number. The senior center, an interesting piece with this, they did a lot of fundraising to buy the last van, and we may end up having to do that again, but they do a lot of lane miles, they do a lot of trips, they spend a lot of money on gasoline, as we've learned. So senior center is an important piece, and their ridership continues to go up. Our aging population continues to increase, therefore we need to provide those types of services. There'll be an added piece relative to the senior center in a minute as well. Because not only for the people who walked in late, and maybe I didn't even mention it to the folks who were here before, we looked at both capital needs and operational needs, where we thought department growth would occur from a staffing perspective. So we do have some requests for growth in the police department, some requests for growth in the senior center, recreation, and a grant administrator, I think would be there could be synergies there with the school department as well, but that's another piece that we want to not fund inside the levy, we want to fund it with proceeds from the grants that we might receive. But we can get into that. But there was some detail there that I didn't cover before. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Tim.
How are you? You want to come this way? I saved you that second seat. I saved you that one. So the police department, if people, since I do have the fire department here, and I have highway and police, I don't have the senior center, I can do rec, and I can do accounting. So does anybody, this utility vehicle from 2002 that was a hand-me-down to the fire department from the sewer department, I don't know, we did that in 2012? You know,
Yeah, I don't know.
but I mean, I think in two things I'm trying to display here. Wherever we can save and redeploy, while being safe to transport people to a scene, we do that. And we've done that consistently. It won't be able to continue with this particular vehicle from 2002. So does anybody have any questions about replacing this particular vehicle? So I don't think this would be a debt exclusion item, and I said that to Becca when we got here, but if we think about the fire department in totality and the $3 million or so it's going to need over the next 5 years, maybe this is part of the debt exclusion for all fire apparatus. It's kind of staggering. We don't get all the money and pay for it all at once, but if we did lease purchase, to hold that impact on the taxpayer, we can do lease purchases and only raise the amount we need to pay the debt, which would limit the burden on the taxpayer. So we're trying to find that balance. So that's the reason why the word is up there. It doesn't mean we're doing it, it just means it's a discussion we need to have. Do you want to talk about that vehicle at all, just so people have your first-hand information?
This vehicle here also plows our 3 fire stations. The DPW and everybody else have been trying to get the roads clear. We have to get the stations cleared so we can take into the station and out of the station for a fire. So this truck here, but I put one of the firefighters in it who knows he plows the 3 fire stations. It's also used to carry equipment if we have a major incident, whether it's 5-gallon pails of foam, or whatever else that we need to pick, that we can bring poles back to the station. We now have a automatic hose roller that can pick up our large diameter hose, so that truck would transport it to the scene and use that machine to roll up the hose so we can pack it back on the scene. Also, we use it for pumping cellars, so we put that truck out there, we have some portable pumps, they can go and do emergency pumping. Also, in very bad weather, a snowstorm, if we have people on duty, that truck will go out with the ambulance. And if they have to, they'll plow that driveway so the ambulance can get in and get to the person that's in need. That's the main purpose of that.
All right, thank you. You want to talk about the highway vehicles?
It's literally just replacing, the aging out equipment. I gave back a list of the years of the trucks. So for example, that truck 44, it's a 2005. 47 is 2007. We were buying steel trucks then, we're buying trucks that are stainless now, so the longevity is better. The salt kills them. You get 10 to 12 good years out of them, and then you start spending more time on repairs and maintenance. Downtime, you really need them, just because the salt is as fast as it runs our cars and runs those trucks twice as fast. One of the reasons, in the new DPW garage, there's a wash bay to really pressurize the salt to get it off the truck. Same thing with the one-ton, we use those, for the majority of the, once the big trucks are done in the wintertime, the majority of the work is done with the one-tons. So that's what staff uses on a daily basis around town. And the cemetery truck is the same thing, it's just an older one-ton, 3 guys in cemetery general. They're a vehicle to use, and it's just it gets used every day, plow snow for the months, and you just need dependable vehicles in order to keep the operation going.
The other funding source relative to the cemetery, there's perpetual care. When you buy a plot, there's money to get separated out. So there could be perpetual care money. There could be, here's a funding source. And I'm not saying, well, what I am saying is these are options. They're not all going to be one or the other. They're going to be a combination of each, not just the one. The perpetual care piece, depending on how much money's there, you could use those for cemetery repair, maintenance, road repair. We did a good portion of the cemetery for a road improvement off of Waterville Street a couple of years back with Phil for perpetual care. So we can still do that and still use that. Police department, this live scan printer, the chief can talk to if you want to know details about it, but this is how they catch bad guys. So if you want to talk about why that's important to replace, it might be good to do that now.
Well, according to standards by the FBI, the printer that we have right now is kind of coming out of date. Now they're using palm printers, they have more accuracy in reading. And it's important now because with so many people with fake IDs, we have undocumented people that bring in, they get fake names, they don't have IDs at all. So what this does is when we take a fingerprint prisoner that comes in, including not necessarily a prisoner, but an LTC applicant, this goes directly to the FBI, checks the fingerprints against their data, and automatically returns the message back to us whether or not the person who gave this name is actually the person whose fingerprints come up. So it's important for us to have that information. And it's a standard that also helps us with accreditation, which we're seeking right now to upgrade that equipment so we have the latest equipment in light scan technology.
And the estimate, 20,000, that's kind of the going rate.
Yes.
So this is 21 too. We should all remember the fiscal year 20 started July 1, so this will start from 2021. We'll start that planning process obviously now. The senior center van, we talked about this a couple minutes ago, but this, we do transport a lot of folks. Barbara's not here, but their transportation has gone up. They do a lot of donated rides. People donate money to pay for the gas and to get people to doctor's visits and so forth. So that's it's kind of a sacred thing for us. We want to get those seniors transported safely and comfortably as best we can. I don't know, maybe it was 2013, we rolled a van down again, much like you did for the fire department from sewer. A van went to the school department. You certainly had to put $5,000 into it to modify it, I guess, but you got a couple of years on it before you had to buy the next one.
Yeah, less than 5 years.
So if we can stretch, get as much out of that toothpaste tube as we can, we do that. So there might be an opportunity here. I know you guys just bought a nicer, smaller van.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can take a look at this one too.
yeah. So that might be an opportunity to roll that out. Or, we had to financially, we could trade it in and get some money for it. We do trade in vehicles from time to time. When we're voted and they're over 5,000, we do have the ability to put those on municipal vehicles and we go out to auction and get those things off to offset the cost. Police likes to trade in police cars that are in good shape to knock his cost down as well. So we do those types of things just to keep the cost down. Parks and Rec, not a lot have we done with Parks and Rec in a very long time. So I think our Parks and Rec program is very robust. The program is great. There's a wait list for the not beach passes, but the day camp program right now, I think there's 65 or 35 families on the wait list. So those, we're doing a lot of stuff for very, very little resource. 2 people run that whole operation. And it breaks even from a programming perspective. It certainly doesn't generate enough money to justify the general fund goals. So this will be playground equipment. We can do capital. We can look for Department of Rec, DCR grants, the MOD, the ADA accessibility study. We found a lot of municipal playgrounds and buildings need upgrading. There are grants for those upgrades that we would apply for as a result of doing the transition plan that we heard about last week. So we're putting Parks and Rec for at least the Norcross piece for 2021. But a lot of those things were donated a long time ago in the 50s, like in South Grafton, we just took out a steel bar, swing set. It was cool, we get some height on it, but it just wasn't safe. So we, as soon as we identify it, and we have competent, capable staff to go make an assessment of this is worn out, it's passages for life, we'll start to pull those things out and make it with safer, more handicap accessible, or period handicap accessible units. So that's that one for Parks and Rec. We did an accounting upgrade to SoftWrite 10 years ago, and we're probably going to have to do one again. Right now we've gone to the cloud for all of our accounting-based software, but there will be platforms and modules that we would want to open up for accounting purposes in 2021. So it's an estimated cost of $50,000. The reason why it's on there for long range, depending on we have an IT long range account, which Finance Committee prompted us to create a town meeting, which we did. And whenever we have available funds, either turn back or free cash, we put money into long-range IT. We might be able to fund some of this, if not all of it, through that account. But we want to, no matter what the funding source is, we want to just put it on a slide, have a discussion about it, we can all know what we're looking at for the next 5 years. So 21 continues, so we have municipal. This has been a multi-3-year process or 3-phase process to upgrade the electric in that building. We've done some. We haven't done all. We had to do a significant fire alarm panel test. The building is 1950. The wiring there certainly doesn't meet today's standard. So we are going through a process now. We have the design for both the fire alarm system and the electrical upgrade. And we estimate that to be about $170,000. School department, these are just the list that you must have just rolled forward for the 631 that didn't get funded?
No,
This is what was submitted last year.
Okay.
FY20.
That didn't get funded, that we think
No.
would go forward?
this is planned for 2021. It doesn't have
Oh,
what did get funded in 2020.
Yeah, without what gets.
Yeah.
Right, and just while I'm on, I do have copies of our entire 5-year plan if anybody wants. It's also available on the website. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Do
Thanks.
you want to talk more about these, or you or Dan?
Just,
Yeah.
you can talk a little bit about these, the ones from FY20 that are in addition to this, they'll roll over. There's around $600,000 for roof at South Grafton Elementary School. And there's several paving, like parking lot type projects. The plumbing HVAC, this is just kind of trying to keep up more with preventive maintenance than we can afford in our budget, try to stay proactive on that. The middle school auditorium, the original auditorium is not in great shape. Some of the seats need to be improved, and then the hot water heater at South Grafton is very old, so we anticipate it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and then just to jump on the auditorium for Grafton Middle School, we're hoping that if we can refurbish that, then it could be a source of rental income for us as well, like the high school is. But currently, nobody would want to rent it out, so it would be a potential source of revenue for us.
When we did the ADA accessibility study, we looked at the polling places in the schools, but not all the schools. So you need to do that transition plan for those buildings before you can be eligible for the grants that are available. So you gotta figure out where that program's in, because you gotta try to be eligible for those grants to do those physical plant improvements for ADA. I'm assuming that auditorium is even close to being ADA. So, if we did the study and then you get the grant, and you get some of this stuff on, of course, you probably run the risk of having to do more, but you should probably do, it's the right thing to do, we should just do it. If we get a grant to offset it, we should try that as well. All right, anything else on the school for 21? We'll keep going with every year as we want to add stuff. So, the sewer department, they have retained earnings. Everybody knows that they generate their own revenue, their enterprise account, so they have a little bit more flexibility. But they don't. They still plan to replace things as they go, and that's the item that they're looking to replace. You want to talk about that truck you want to replace?
It's, just to bring it to Ford F-350, 2009, well, it doesn't sound old, and it's, in my mind, not old, but it's got a water rot underneath the trim, you know, on the bed of the truck. So our plan would probably be, last week, passed out to the cemetery now for the summertime, people to use, because it's a fine vehicle for driving like that, but not for us, from a reliability standpoint. If we need it, we can get it and go. So it's a good.
And you call it that now?
Yes.
You wouldn't call it that if it was the summertime?
And we, yeah, we would just sit there and the college kids like this. It serves the purpose.
All right, any questions for Paul on that one? All right, 22? Well, I think we have. Engine 1. So you're gonna get a full 20 out of that?
Yeah, we did. It's 22 years, actually. And we've always tried to do a 25-year plan on our first two pieces. But since the report came out, it would tell us 15 to 20 years. So we're a little over the 20 years, but we know that, I know that money is tight throughout, so I mean, we held off a year, and of course, that's what the report said to do in the 2022, to give kind of an off year for the fire department. But again, it would be replacing the engine that's 22 years old. And that truck there, I mean, we would just, I wouldn't even keep it for a reserve. I would sell it outright, as excess property. The previous truck that we just got this year, we're keeping it because it's a good truck for a reserve piece. And that would take the place of the 1982 reserve piece that we have right now. But that 1982 piece has been a godsend to us, because when we lose a main-piece engine for repairs, it sometimes is about 2 weeks or more. We still have an engine to protect that district. So that this truck here, the replacement would just go right into when the truck was out of service. So we'd always have 100% coverage.
And I mean, a replacement like that, when one goes down, it has to go on for 4 weeks. You know, you have a preventative maintenance plan on all those
We do.
vehicles.
And I had an engine go down for 9 weeks. And it was just stuff with aging, and then it goes in for preventive maintenance, but also went in for brake issues that we had the brakes replaced the year before. And they were having trouble with the brakes. But they found a few things that were rotted in the plumbing end of it, they had to fix it. So, yeah, it took a little bit longer time, but we were fortunate enough to have a reserve piece to be able to put into that station, so we still have coverage there.
And I'll just, one thing, just riding on engine 1, 95% of the time it was open door. The truck that replaced it was 25 years old when that replaced it. That truck that, in 2000 when we replaced it, that truck had probably 15,000 miles on it. So engine 1 right now has 30,000 miles on it in less time than that truck. Just the call volumes, you know, in that same, over that 20-year period, more than doubles the truck. Now, you know, the other one went 25 years, it was 15,000, now we've gone, 20 years and it's only, 30,000.
Wow. No, it's a good, we're gonna put that in notes.
But that truck there also does the mass pipe, and then If we do the Mass Pike, probably anywhere from 40 to 50 runs a year. And then the problem is, like, we had a call out there today, it was in Grafton at 100.3 mile off the westbound. But the truck had to go all the way to 495 east, turn around at 495 and come all the way back. So we have a mutual aid agreement with Westboro. They had west, we had east, for benefit from exit 11, which is Mill Creek, all the way to 495, just because we can't get there. But it racks up the miles very quickly. So that truck goes on the fast pike probably 20, 50 times a year. We're doing probably 25, 30 miles.
And I don't think people think about that. I mean,
They don't.
You do respond out there.
Yep.
I'm gonna say twice a month on average. You know, sometimes it's easy, it's very Westboro.
Twice a week.
Sometimes. I mean, we've gone out there 10 times in a month. And then sometimes we don't go up, and we'll go mutual aid for Westboro. And that's what builds it up, because we could go on almost to 495 eastbound, we would be there way ahead of Westboro, because they have to go west, turn about Old Westboro Road and come back. So we get on Old Westboro Road and head east. They'll get on the service plaza and head west, so they'll beat us to anywhere in Grafton on the westbound up to Old Westboro Road. But it works out. I mean, our main concern is public safety and taking care of people out there. So.
It's a hazard being on that road. Mike will tell you he doesn't like to pay the fee, because people don't know this, we're supposed to have a transponder to pay. That's why for a fire truck to go through the tunnels.
Right.
It's hilarious, but we're working on it. So the landscaping in front of the police department, oh, did I skip over your highway trucks? Same story.
Same story.
We're just trying to get them an aggressive rotation. You know, maybe you'll get 2 more years out of them now you have a wash bay, but you were getting the 2 years out of them before, because you were trying.
Yeah, and we're buying better, the trucks we're buying now are better designs.
Stainless.
We're using stainless wherever we can, you know, the simple things as airlines and straps to hold the fuel tanks on. As many nuts and bolts as we can get stainless. And with the new building and with the wash equipment, certainly hopefully.
And again, these are just funding options. The total for those, and those trucks are 5-ton dump trucks, the big one you see, 6 wheels, 10 wheels. That's, yeah, so it's like, they 6-wheel dump trucks with 5 ton?
Yeah, and then we have 110 wheel.
Yeah, which I have. Okay. And then for 22, we talked about this at the Capital Summit staff-wise. The police department, the chief is long along at that front of that building to look better. It's like, it's our campus for the municipality and for the school. But it's tough to maintain because of the way the slope is, and to cut that grass. So the chief has some ideas about making it easily maintained and look so much better than it looks today. So that's, there's aesthetics, but there's also a maintenance issue, because right now, they weed whack it, right? Because there's no arm that can reach down that slope effectively, so they actually go down there, and if you can imagine being on a side slope like that, the weed whack is not smart. So that's the reason. You want to talk more about it? I don't know if I did a good job.
No, like you said, basically it's an introduction to the town. You see that before you see anything else. We have some ideas. I've talked to a couple of landscapers. It should be noticed that 30,000 though includes any engineering we have to do, which we probably won't. I think we discussed that. Bids roughly about 20, but the 10 would be for any engineering that would have to be done, which we're not looking to change the functionality of the swale that's there. We're just looking to change the slope itself, get rid of the grass, make it basically maintenance grade. Of course, weeds always come up when we look around, but maybe throw some shrubbery there that would, GPD or something like that, and just make it a little more welcoming, a little nicer for the town itself.
Did you say anything about putting riprap in there?
Yes.
Is there anything left over from the DPW that you're doing now that you could put there?
In the short term, or
Well,
just?
like the stuff that you're, from the DPW you're building now, any of that material, instead of waiting until then and buying it, you just bring it over?
I don't know. There's
No,
two
all
things.
all this stuff is cost, you know, it's built into the general contractor's cost, so they buy it as they need it.
But it would like all that ledge that you guys had to get
They,
through that?
they process it right
They
on site,
rip
and
it.
use for the site.
I would be looking for like a 2 or 3 inch riprap. It would be a big. I
Like 4 to 6,
Yeah,
yeah.
so, something that is a little more permeates in the water through there and totally destroy itself.
The other wrinkle with that site, it did go through a plan process. Conservation has restrictions on it, so whatever we redesign it to be has to be the standard for retention of water that comes out from our building, their building, and that whole site that gets there before it goes to the pond, to Lake Ripple. So we need to make sure that that is designed and can be re-permitted, or at least verified that what we're planning on doing is okay with that conservation plan. It's not a restriction. It's like their rules, right? I mean, what do you?
As stormwater.
Yeah, but what's the term that they have for conservation? It's not restriction. No, they're
Condition?
Water.
yeah, order of conditions, sorry, thank you. So we want to comply with this. The municipal center, this is the third part, I guess, if you will, for the electrical upgrade at the municipal center. We estimate that that's a $60,000 piece. That's in conjunction with the fire and overall electricity. We did go to LED in the entire building recently, so we should be using less and less electricity, which is good. The only wires we changed, however, that would have been changed under this, we did it at the same time we changed out to those LEDs, so we had some efficiencies of scale to change out those wires at the same time we did the other ones. So not all of them are going to have to be done, but this is our best estimate again. It's a program that'll have to be bid out to go as well. School department, these still a roll forward that are probably the same that's in the plan that you just handed out. So that's significant. If there's MSBA, or if we're serious about doing them, they have to be excluded, or there's really no other way to do it. There's two ways to approach it: MSBA and split, or debt excluded for the whole thing.
And I think the biggest one on there is the HV replacement for PMS, which is over $1 million, it's $1.2 million. It's a 52-year-old system, and they don't make the parts to replace it, so they have to regenerate parts, and it's obviously very energy inefficient. So that's over half of that is for that. And the field house.
Yeah, and we have some on our plan, we have some textures and a little more description, but the field house would be, I think also, we were talking about potentially having it serve as concession stand area, where possibly have a bathroom in
Extra
there.
bathrooms, because you can't accommodate fans for the
I saw a foundation going in on the other side of behind the old middle school. What's that going to be?
Yeah, that's in storage also, storage for the athletics and theater department. So that's going to help out a little bit for their storage needs.
What's it, like 20 by 40? You know.
Yeah.
And was that a capital or a new operation?
Operational,
All right.
yeah. But we use it, a lot of the money that we get off renting out the auditorium, things like rental money. Also, the theater department contributed because they're going to have some of their stuff in there.
Awesome.
So Dan, so those HVAC units were 51 years old last year. At what point do we make the decision that this is a must-have and we want to do debt exclusion? So there's a lot of projects like this. The windows at North Street School were another one where, you know, we got partial funding, we went to the state, we decided ultimately that wasn't something that we needed to do right now. So we went with kind of plan B, which was fix them up just enough to kind of get by for a little while. And what I'm thinking about is, as we do our projections, when does this one land? Is it next year? Is it 5 years from now? Like at what point, you know, how do we measure those things where probably we have some uncomfortable rooms, which don't make for good teaching environments? At what point do we cross that threshold where we go, we just have to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can continue to look at it. I don't know if it was on maybe a year earlier, the last year, and then we keep maybe pushing it out a year, but depending on how bad it gets, they've been, I think, okay that last year. Or, depending on how often they start breaking down, we probably be more likely to say we need to do this sooner than later. So there's only, they're actually in the ceiling, there's 12 of them, and they're $100,000 each. So we talked about also potentially you could do it in some phases, so individual units. But it'd be more efficient to do them all at once, maybe upgrade the whole system.
They're all gas fired, right? There's no oil left.
Yeah, no oil. But so it's a very expensive. I think no matter when we do it, it'd be that exclusion.
Sure.
Um,
I'm just wondering, when do we put that on the projections? That, you know, this year, the schools are gonna say,
yeah.
you know, it's kind of the same thing with the roofs and the fields, and we've got a lot of these big ticket items that are
Yeah.
hanging around, that we've been kicking down the can, you know, kicking down the road for a while now.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering from a projection standpoint, how much confidence, and I guess how far along is the schools in thinking about when we want to say, look, we've got to do one of these projects at some point, and we want to actually put that into the town's projections in terms of debt exclusion, and we're going to raise taxes at that point.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep that type of long range planning, trying to figure out maybe what year is good for that, in either 2022 or maybe 1 or 2 years after that. I don't think we can push it too much farther.
Does Tony keep, like, for those 52 units, how much does he spend on those units, fixing those units every year?
Yeah.
Because you have a comfort thing, which you can't really put a value on, but that's,
Right.
you know, there's a value there. That kid cannot be distracted, he's going to get through his test better than if he wasn't, right? So, and then what does he spend? So you can kind of look at both those things and say, yeah, definitely, we're spending 10 grand a month fixing these systems. I want to do that sooner than
That's the
later.
roof thing, right?
Yeah.
Where we do some maintenance on all the roofs because we want to stretch their life expectancy as long as we can. But it gets to a certain point where you go, okay, this is just the leaking sieve and it's kind of done now. We don't want to continue putting in $100,000, $200,000 a year, whatever it is. So we think this is the year. We just need to go to the town and say, look, we've done everything we can. This roof is done. We need to replace it now.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking about. So we'll try to look at cost, like what we're spending now to repair them each year.
I mean, that would be the only thing that would drive me to know I'd have to replace it without spending money on it. So you guys had it, you already have it, somebody,
Yeah.
before you knew, oh, this is getting, it couldn't have just been comfort.
Yeah,
It had to be a value.
Because we're getting to the point that they don't make the parts anymore, so that's kind of when you start thinking, you
Yeah.
know, it takes a while to repair them if they do get to break down. So now that it's kind of we don't have parts anymore, we are, you know, it's stretching the lifespan pretty far at this point.
So I think this is a bigger question in terms of rolling it all up and getting very scared of the number, but then breaking it down
Not that we
to,
get scared of it. It's more just, we know that we can't fund everything. And there are these big ticket items that are just kind of, you know, we're squeezing. My overall sense of it, though, is that we do have, we're kicking bigger and bigger cans down the road. And so from a projection standpoint, at some point, we've got to have that moment where we go, okay, this, you know, how we're doing our financial projection isn't really accurate, because at some point, we don't know what that's going to be. One of these, or multiple of these projects are going to hit, so.
but you can, now we rolled it up and then you can unpack it, then you can determine when they're going to hit, right? So you, just like we're pressing Dan for the answer to the question of when, we can make that determination instead of those things failing and then it's now, right? So
Exactly.
it's perfect to have that, us driving that bus versus those things breaking down and driving us. But it will be intimidating when you look at it in totality. When you look at $17 million, well, I mean, from you and me pragmatically.
In reality, it's not going to be any different than it was yesterday. We're just going to have a number that people look at and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
But in reality.
But if they don't understand the fact that we stretched everything, if they say no, you get nothing. So we need to make sure they understand we did everything to get all that toothpaste out of the tube before we asked them. So I just went from a pragmatic standpoint of getting it passed. You gotta kind of roll it all up, get shocked, and then break it down into small pieces that people can digest. Because if they say no, all I have is a broken building that the kids can't go to school in. So I'm just kind of thinking that pragmatic piece of it.
I got a question though on the HVAC stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's 52 years old, it's gonna be so inefficient that, have you looked, I mean, it's run by natural gas, correct? Have you
Right.
talked to the utilities about maybe if there's rebates, you know, for putting in new stuff? I mean,
Yeah, the 25A we did with Honeywell, that probably was one, but the return on investment wasn't there. So yeah, they would, you'll yield, if you spend 60 grand a year on gas, you'll save 30%. But it won't be enough to pay the difference.
Right.
But
I
yeah,
understand.
because we did that for Honeywell with the 6 million and 5 buildings. That one, I don't remember the details of it, but it was on, this massive spreadsheet. We did it here, I think.
Yeah.
So there are incentives, they'll have to take advantage of all those things. And that may or may not be what the $1.2 million comes up with. But I know that you guys have looked at that as an option. But in terms of funding it or paying for it, it's not gonna be self-sustaining. Because the biggest savings we had with all the buildings was removing oil, because that was such a, who knew what oil would be? Right now it's cheap, unfortunately, but natural gas is still cheaper. But we moved everything to natural gas, we got the efficiency and we got the cost reduction from the oil. And that's where our savings were. If you look at like the Honeywell report today, for the 2 years cost avoidance and utility cost savings, it's over $300,000. So we're paying a debt service for all those buildings, school and town, basically because we eliminated oil and we have high efficiency gas burners.
Right.
So I'm with you, we will do that no matter what, but they're not going to be able to cover $1.2 million just by increasing the efficiency from probably 43% to 89%.
But you said that 12 units are all individual. Could you do like 4 year over 3 years just to make it easier to swallow?
Yeah, we talked about that, I think that is feasible.
Yeah, and Tony probably has history of each unit, which one cost him the most. I mean, it's tough to say, because they may not cost you again the same amount, it might be different than it cost you that same amount you paid last year, once you change it up. So, I don't know, you guys you'll do that analysis, I'm sure. 23, this is a loader replacement, 38, and that would get a wing plow. We can do one of the other capital free cash, or we can go to Chapter 90. That is a request that has to go through the board. I should have qualified this before. Board of Selectmen makes that determination of what the Chapter 90 funds have been spent on. We do have a lot of earmarked Chapter 94 projects specific now. Stowe Road, Culvert, some other design work for George Hill. There's some big items out there that we're slating Chapter 94. Main Street, South Grafton, for its final piece of design. So there's a lot of pieces there. But again, they're just options, they're not set in stone. You want to talk about that loader and how old it is?
It's a 99, and we don't have a plow, we don't have a truck with a wing plow now. So we, fortunately, the last 2 weeks have been, busy, but not huge snow events. But I don't even want to buy a truck with a wing, because it's maybe 2 people on the truck, because you can't see how the wing operates right now. It's not the same as plowing with a wing on a highway. So you need a loader gives you the visibility to see, because you're by yourself, you're going to high enough. So you can push those back into over, pick the wing up, and just keep going.
Any questions for Paul on that one?
Well, just on the funding sources, so Tim, how do you think about the priority of funding sources? Because you have a mix of different funding sources for replacement of the trucks. Do you do, whatever's left out of Chapter 90 that isn't already allocated first, and then go to capital, and then go to debt exclusion, or like, how do you think about that?
It depends on who's in the room, right? I mean, what am I going to get people to say yes to at the end of the day, whether it's town meeting or the select board? I gotta take my cue from what their willingness is to do one or the other. But it's never clean, it's never one over the other. It's gonna be a lot about what other projects are competing, what have already been programmed. And then when you get in the room to say, let's pick one, you gotta kind of map all that out. So I don't have a scientific approach to it. But my druther would be to use free cash to fund that particular piece and not use chapter 90. That'd be my first statement, so I'd go to that. But because I know that there's so many other things competing for free cash, I don't have a choice. So I gotta not do, 10, a half a lane mile because I gotta buy a piece of equipment.
Right.
And I know, previous board didn't want to use chapter 90, they did it twice, but they don't want to use it on equipment.
Okay.
But I still have to ask because you can't.
Right.
So, not a good answer, I know. That's the honest truth.
Yeah.
Pencil zoom cameras, do you want to talk about those, Chief?
Basically, we're looking to replace the PTZ cameras at the police station. Those are all the exterior cameras that watch the exterior lot, exterior entrances. They were installed when we went to the building in 2006. They're analog cameras, and we can't use them with the IP digital recorder that we have now. They had to be adapted, but it's kind of jury rigged. So we'll be looking, they're not supported anymore, so we're looking to replace those in fiscal year 2023. Price of those cameras right now is about, actually that price was got probably the end of last year, about $5,000 per camera. And part of that is the installation to put up in some of the towers that we have. We have two of the antenna towers that watch the building. Once again, that's another aspect of accreditation. We have to, if we have anything outside, we keep a car for evidence that's involved in an accident, something like that, bulk storage, whatever, has to be watched, monitored by the dispatcher via camera, unless we can keep it inside the building. There are certain things we can't put inside the building, so that's that. By that time, it'll be, time has come to replace those. We're having difficulty now sometimes moving around to catch certain aspects of whatever. They do come in. We've actually had incidents in the parking lot where the dispatch has been able to turn the camera around, watch people fighting and all that. We made arrests based on what they've been able to watch using the cameras. So actually made a drug arrest in the parking lot as a result of this several years ago. So it's
a cheap transport.
necessary.
It's a cheap transport, you get to walk them in the building instead of putting them in the car. So the last two on this page are just Parks and Rec, again, just keeping up with the replacement for Ferry Street. Funding sources are there. Municipal Center roof, could be $500 we spent on that roof. Just not with this new solar, that's a new roof. That was not on the Limeville project. The roof over the gym leaks from time to time, and when it does, we fix it. Anything from $500 to $2,000, depending on the severity of the leak and what needs to be fixed. I don't think, last leak we had was probably the spring.
Last year.
Yeah. So they're there, and it needs to be replaced. It hasn't been done in my tenure for that roof, so it needs to be done. It's probably a 35-year roof right now, but it needs to be done. So we have that program for 23. We can look at 23 continued school department. This is all the stuff again. We just roll forward. So I don't know if you want to talk about these particular pieces, Dan.
Yeah, the biggest one on there is the turf field. We have 2 turf fields at the high school. They say, I think, 10 to 15 years life expectancy. So we're trying to keep them for longer than what's recommended, but at some point we'll have to replace them. And they're pretty expensive to replace. We had estimated around $700,000 per field. So in our plan, we have it broken out, like do one field 1 year and one field the next year. Because they were put in at the same time, so that we have the same life expectancy.
Yeah, different use. And I don't remember if I read it, but you're actually supposed to water those and not use them if it's over 90 degrees outside. I don't know if you know that's true, but I read it in some trade magazine. It's supposed to water over, you're supposed to not use them if it's over 90 degrees ambient temperature.
Yeah, I know they maintain them, it actually takes a lot of work to maintain turf fields, it might be even more than grass. It seems not logical, but they have to rake them every day to keep the rubber,
And the pellets even.
the pellets, yeah, so it takes a lot of work.
It's a nice, they're beautiful fields, I mean, they're great. But you are gonna spend some money. You don't know what is the one field, 700,000 you said?
7,000 for each field, yeah.
So we get to another slide, will it be the second, then you said they were different years?
Yeah, for 2024, we see the other one.
Any other ones you wanna talk about on here?
The other one, probably the only other one that's a bigger one is the roof at North Street. And that one is those two. We have 4 different sections of the roof. We did them all at the same time, and actually around $2 million.
You know, you know that they're not, are they original, do you think?
I don't know the age, I might have it written inside.
I don't, I mean,
Plan, but
I can always get this from that.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about the fridge? Is that a safety concern, keeping food at proper temperature, like that we should address sooner than 2023?
yeah, possibly.
It's
I
not,
think,
yeah.
I mean, they're keeping the food at the correct temperature.
Okay, I just see not functioning properly, I'm assuming
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's not great.
Full of water, not keeping space at temp long enough for compressor, but obviously you wouldn't be keeping food, just putting our kids at risk. So it
That's
gets
some-
inspected by
Yeah,
a food. So,
that's something too, we could probably get like repair costs on that, you know, because they gotta come and kind of quickly repair it before, you know, within that first 24 hours or something. So, it get a little expensive.
What's the estimated cost?
65,000.
Yeah, so I mean, what you guys will probably do is to say, hey, this is, we've been spending $4,500 a year fixing the thing. Yeah, it's been that way for 5 years, it's this time is to do it. So, you know, spend $4,500 of operation money fixing it. So maybe that's something that gets moved up just because of that. But when you do that analysis, we can look at it. I would say 1975 doesn't owe you anything.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on this list for 23 for the schools? Highway 48, did I ever see a 48 or was that 38?
That was 38, so 30.
All right, 46. So again, more highway stuff, more vehicles. George Hill Road construction, I go back and forth with the capital plan that I submit, if it should contain things that will be excluded or overrides. This road, needs help. We need to do it. But the estimate is $4 million. So that's a lot of money. So that has to be a combination of Chapter 90, probably for design and engineering, construction oversight, and then the rest is to be bid out and to be done through a public contract. That's 2024. The 2 vehicles, it's the same, just keeping up with the replacement of those vehicles. The detail on all those, Paul has them, but if you want to.
Yeah, same, well, 48 is our last, well, it's not our last, but it's like the last truck we use all the time, it's all steel. So, it's the last of that series of vehicles, so. Get rid of that one, and that's a 12, so it'll be 12 years old when this, when it gets replaced, mine. It's fine today, but
Well, that, I mean, we're trying to just plan for that. Hey, if it's still going,
then we
we're going to push to 24, 25.
So Tim, the reason that you put George Hill on here, because it's such a big number, you mentioned earlier that Chapter 90 was allocated to a lot of other projects, but they don't show up on here, so was that just that we know this is a huge nod?
Yeah, it's an issue. And Chapter 90, historic is about $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then obviously the road stabilization account is $1.5 million, and we have that program, being very aggressive with those. So, yeah, people need to be made aware of it, yeah, and be ready for when we say we need to
Are there
do
any
it.
other big projects like that, or really is that like a lot?
In the foreseeable future, you see another big one?
No, that's it. Main Street, just for some comparison, is Main Street's little more than 8 million, same length of road.
Yep.
But Main Street, obviously, the sidewalks and it's wider, and it's, more.
There's traffic control devices. There's all
Right,
kinds.
upgrading a little bit of infrastructure there. There's no infrastructure at all in George Hill, so while it's a skinnier road, it's still 2 miles long.
Yeah.
And it's just got swales for drainage, there is no drainage. Right. So all that would have to be upgraded, there's no, the base is, non-existent, it's just a little far. But that's the biggest thing we have. Looking forward 10 years.
All right. Unless, the second part of this meeting was to listen to other people, might tell me to pigeon, do what.
Yeah, well,
something
that's kind of what I was thinking about,
Yeah.
is, as you drive around town, there's lots of other,
Yeah.
long, nasty roads.
Yeah, Westboro Road, Old Westboro Road, and which we want to do that culvert and the train station, so. Yeah, so that's the second part of it. Police, this is more accreditation stuff. The chief has been diligent in a lot of ways in terms of getting grants. We've worked with the state legislators, which I think they just signed the budget, voted on the budget today, just a couple minutes ago. I was getting a phone call from the Senate more, so I'm hoping that's come out of conference committee. But anyways, there's a lot of pieces to this one, because we could get other grant funds to offset this cost, but the chief can talk about why he needs these. But accreditation's one for the storage, the storage file system, and then the shed, you just have equipment, you just run out of space.
Once again, bulk storage, bicycles and whatnot, that we can't keep up in, we can't keep in the garage all the time, all that, we need extra space. That's about 12,000 for that, so. But the space in Google storage, we're getting, we have to keep records up there naturally, those records and all that, it's getting kind of difficult to do, just whack some files and all that, so it's really helps to economize that space and using it, if you're familiar with Google storage, basically it's on a track, and they have it in the clerk's office.
Yeah, we have it in the old locker room, which we picked up 65% space. So we have a lot of growth potential inside that room because of those
So
file
once we get
systems.
that, most apartments now that are being built have this built into the records, archives, so it takes up minimal space. The files that we have, paper files that we have.
Sewer department, just replacing another truck. Do we have questions on that particular piece? Want to talk about the truck replacement?
No, I mean, just replace, one truck for same thing. It's
If we can roll it down, and if it's still good,
It's still
we'll do that someplace else.
useful life for somebody else.
The senior center, the minivan, ridership is up, I've already covered this, but they think that there's a need for a smaller type van to bring people to specialty trips, one-offs. So they'll do fundraising, if there'll be grants available. The estimated cost right now is $43,000. It would be the third van for transporting seniors. And part of this goes into, or not goes into, but it'll lead us into 2024 from an operational perspective. We will need 2 part-time van drivers to make sure we can maintain and run those things, so there's a cost there as well. Anything I'm missing on that? Okay. And Parks and Rec, again, Riverview, park equipment. Again, Jen's great, we have 2 people, she runs a lot of programs, but she's a certified playground, not instructor, but safety reviewer. So she's been to every place, and she's prioritized the list based on need and longevity of those pieces of equipment, so that's how they got prioritized. That's why they do this way. So again, we would look to capital, free cash, CPC, as we will fund any of those replacements, and then any of the grant funds we can get from Mass Office on disability. And then the library checkout station will replace the 2019 models. This could be IT, this could be free cash, this could be within the project itself for the library, depending on cost. So that could go away sooner than 20. The bathrooms, one of the things that came out in the ADA study were the bathrooms in the municipal center. If everyone's been lucky enough to use them, they're great. If you were a 7-year-old kid. But most of us are not anymore, so we need to focus on those. Our best guess from that study was $160,000 cost. Schools, again, you guys can talk about this.
Yeah, we got the other turf field there, and then just to replace outdated furniture in the classrooms or the buildings, keep up with additional HVAC repairs, and potential handicap ramp at some time.
We don't vote self-drafting, right? There's no polling station self-drafting, is there?
No, we just did that.
So when you do the study, you'll do it before 2024,
Yeah.
and then maybe the MOD can get us some grant money to do that ramp.
Yeah.
We're doing 2 ramps now. 3 ramps or 2? 2 ramps at the municipal center.
So expensive.
Anyway, actually, now I don't want to talk about it, so we're going to move on. So the total for 24 is $1,511,000. Does not include George Hill, because George Hill has to be excluded. There's no
So there's no appetite for, so we get about $2 million a year between the stabilization fund and chapter 90. There's no appetite for over that $500 a year for the next 8 years and doing it that way.
I haven't thought about it because we voted on an aggressive plan to use those funds to do the roads that were on the list. As the pavement management index went down, the dollar spent on the repair, that's how they figured out the justification to do the road.
Yep.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but there's a lot more people that have to be talked to about that.
Yeah, of course.
But DPW advisory, it's capital improvement planning committee, so I pulled it out by town meeting. But yeah, it could be done that way. But the people who were next on the list, they get moved there. Awful mad at somebody. 25, this is the tower we talked about at the beginning. This, again, it's $2 million. Has to be, in my mind, unless it's a grant, and people talk about grants a lot for this community, we are typical middle class. If you can equate that to people trying to get student financial aid for college, we don't get it. So we are not going to get a lot. Paul's applied twice to replace the tanker that we had from the Air Force. We're just not in that sweet spot where we'll get funding. Doesn't mean we won't try, but we're probably not going to get it. We were lucky to get a couple of earmarks. We worked with the senator and the rep to get some earmarks for public safety, so we were able to purchase a vehicle with some of their money, but those are $20,000 type things. They're not $2 million types of things. Maybe there's some offset here. Maybe there's some equipment that we can need on the truck that we might get a grant for. We can do that. The big picture is $2 million. Then the trackless, didn't we just buy a trackless?
Yeah, so we have 2. The old one is
Done.
dead as of last week. So down to 1, and we had 1 sidewalk problem that long again, so we should be able to get by until that one is new. So, and then truck 23 it's the oldest truck in the fleet. It's old back, but we took the body off, which is a standard, not directly required, so it's what we use for a spare truck right now. So our thought process would be, the plan was that by 2025, would be probably keep the truck from the previous year as a spare, replace this truck that year, would probably be looking to add another staff member just as by then, figuring that some of the subdivisions that are on construction right now were supposed to be accepted, and we need another vehicle to maintain that.
Okay, we added lane miles.
12 miles of, 24 lane miles of road per truck, for solving plowing operations.
And we'll have other facilities we want to keep nice, right? The library, we keep them nice now, but we'll keep them nicer. All right. Dispatch, police department. Chief Wheeler, I was with you when we talked to these guys the other day, so you want to talk about this?
Basically, the radio council for the police dispatch is, as of 2025, it'll be about 19 years old. It's equipment that's served its useful life. We've been maintaining, we've had a maintenance program with Motorola, who is our vendor, and they will not have maintenance on it after, within 2 years, they're not going to have maintenance on it anymore. So any repairs would have to be paid out by the town. And there's a lot of equipment that's in the council that's unsupported. So that takes care of our primary UHF band. We have other radios in the VHF. We have the, what we call 800 megahertz radios, LPS, which allows us to talk with all departments, including the state police. All that is built into the council, and that's going to have to be replaced. Once again, this was installed in 2006 when we originally moved into the building, and it's reached the end of its useful life. And what can I say? If we don't have communications, public safety is going to be, going to have a problem.
So when you say they don't have a service contract, you'll still be able to get service, you just won't pay an annual fee, get them to come out, you'll have to pay more
If they
money.
have the parts for the
to get them to-
equipment, that's the big thing.
Okay.
So that's, we've replaced the computer and the programming for it, but there are other parts, the big parts that relate to the repeater systems and all that, has to be replaced. I mean, we can, nickel and dime it, but if we want a good communication system, which we have a great communication system right now, when we set it up originally, we made sure that we can get all points of town, especially in this village terrain. I think Chief Gallagher will tell you that sometimes our communications, not ours, but fire department, is spotty. They work off our computers also, and we want to have communications. We're going to have to replace it. And you were there when Jonathan Morat mentioned it, so.
And then one that's been on for a long time is the repave the municipal center parking lot. This is a huge ticket item in my mind, but it's what the number is. If you walk through this parking lot, the number of trips that people make to visit every day, I'm surprised they don't have more broken ankles or twisted legs, but it needs a lot of help. We're adding parking now, parking just to park, still traversing across the front of the parking lot to get to any of the entrances into the building. You traverse around some pretty significant potholes. We replace those things, so we do anywhere else, but it rains, it pops, it's still a hole. So it needs to be done, much like the school department's plan to do some of their parking lots, the municipal center parking lots. Been a need for a long time. I'd love to see it before 2025, but it's the only place I can really think that I can maybe get away with doing it. But it's $350,000, it's a lot of money. So that's the estimate for that. We have one more slide.
I don't have school department, I don't know if you guys want to talk about, but we don't know about 2025?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so nothing for the schools in 2025,
Yeah.
just yet. Well, I know, hold the umbrella. So there's operational impacts for all this stuff. Paul alluded to it a little bit ago, but in 2022, the increased lane miles for the community, we will need another heavy truck driver. That wage, that's the kind of the middle of the road of the union contract as it stands today. It's not a good wage, to be honest with you, but that's the wage that's in the middle of the road. So that's their ask. Whether they get it or not will determine how much money we have to spend on everything else when we add things. Same with everything else on this list. That's the precursor to this. Whatever we think we need growing forward, moving forward to grow, it's subject to availability of funds. So in 21, if there's not an additional 131, just maintaining level services, we will not be doing this work that's on this list. But they are requested by those particular departments because there's an operational piece to running a government that I want people to see, and this is it from what we see. There will be other things I'm sure the school has. They've planned out from 2021, 22 relative to staffing and moving people around. But this is what we reasonably expect from a staffing perspective, what would be needed for operations. Some might be shocked by some of this stuff. If you read anything that's been published in the past couple of 2 months, it shouldn't be shocking for anyone. But police department, detective, chief can talk about that, dispatchers and another officer going all the way up to 2023. The van driver, we talked about that, 2024, if we add that third van, we will need 2 part-time drivers. We estimate that cost to be about $27,000. The fire chief is in the room. Chief would be competitive in this process, not excluding the current chief. There's a volunteer from this, but our estimate, if we had to hire a fire chief, and we did an assessment center and hired someone, it would cost us roughly $125,000. That's the quick and dirty view of that 420-page report. So I hope no one's shocked by that. It was in the report. I said it out loud. I said it. Part-time municipal part-time custodian, $23,000. Support for the expanded library. So there are studies and there are RS mean guidelines for square footage of building and how many people you should have, custodial staff and for maintenance staff. Schools way under the number they should have, the 57,000 square feet. The municipal center, we're under ours, 20 or 26,000 or so. The library will have, they have 0, they use ours. Police department, 16,000 square feet, they have 0, they use ours. Fire department does it on their own, thank you very much. DPW does it on their own, thank you very much. But we are tight, and we think to provide the programming support the library is going to need for all the programs that they run, setting up chairs, closing off rooms, emptying trash, kids throw up, whatever. You're going to need a body there at least part-time. Could be a municipal person who's dedicated to the library, but I don't want to be pigeonholed to the building. I want to be able to have some flexibility. So it's municipal, but it will support the library. That's what that goal is for 2021. Recreation, again, I can't stress enough, it's done with 2 people. Just look at the brochure that they did this year. It's amazing. The program they do at the beach, the winter programs, outdoor adventure, all that stuff, they need another body, and that's in 2021. Does it happen in 2022? Again, it depends with everything else in terms of how much money we have to spend.
Well, this position, the recreation position, was requested in 2020. This budget cycle that we're just entering, it got cut, obviously, it's going to make a lot of cuts to make 2020 work, but it, again, still a need, still a want, just, like you said, gets kicked down the road.
So there would be some offset though from the rec department in terms of the expanded programming. I know what cover the costs, but.
Yeah, I mean, they do turn back, not turn back, they generate a lot of cash flow, a lot of revenue. I had that number for a long time in my head in terms of, you know, if their budget's 180 grand, how much do they generate in revenue?
Yeah.
There will be some.
There would be some offset.
But for the most part, we would just target the general fund for the revenue for that position. And then whatever comes in addition, we will offset it. The grants administration is something we've just started to talk about recently, but we do this now, right? We bring communities, we get to use up to 10% of the grant for grant administration and overhead. There's other grants that we get as well. I have a ring in my ear, I apologize. That we would, offset this cost with. We do, everybody enjoys the electric aggregation program that we instituted maybe 4 years ago now. The rates are getting a little tighter, but there is an adder inside of there of 0.001 for every kilowatt hour. There's 0.001 cent tacked onto that, which the town will receive from the electric supply company that we can use to fund a position like a sustainability coordinator or grants administrator, whatever the terminology you want to put on it. That would be the funding source from that particular item. We could do that earlier because that adder is in the mix right now going forward for those bills. And that should generate, based on the consumption of electricity for Grafton, about $50,000. So it's not in my budget forecast for 21 or 20 because I didn't know if the DPU would approve it. There was a lot of things up in the air. It's been approved, so we'll have availability of that fund. Actually, we got it at the beginning of this fiscal year, so it'll be the full fiscal year. We should enjoy the full $50,000 of that revenue stream. So the growth for total impacts, this doesn't include, the modest 2.5% pay raises we give to folks. Those are, in the $150,000 range overall for all cost increases for unions and non-unions. But this would be 386 for 21, 113, 22. Obviously it goes up, but we've asked people to think about what their ongoing operational needs would be, and this is what they came back with. Obviously, the bottom one is the one we thought of. We thought of the recreation coordinator one too, but that was really Jim pushing that piece. That pushed the custodian, fire department studies pushing that. Senior center is certainly Barbara advocating there. Police is police, and then Paul's highway. So in terms of who gave us what information to make these pitches to you, that's where they came from. Back up on those. Did we have, on those operational impacts, I asked staff this in the staff meeting, are there things that we don't do, that we should do, and how would we actually provide that service if we were to provide them? This is partially what we came up with. The other one item that's not on here, because we just don't know how to talk about it intelligently, is a town engineer. We have Brian, who's a great project manager. He does day-to-day stuff. He can do the quantities, make sure the bills are right, make sure the thickness is right of the pavement. He does all that stuff, but in terms of reviewing stormwater calculations, the chief's idea of fixing the swale in front of his building, should I have that person on staff, or should I continue to contract that out? So it's not on the list. We haven't really got all the pieces of that worked out, but that might be something that makes a lot of sense. When Tony was in the room and I asked about doing it like that, would you guys have a use for a person resource like that? He said no, because they don't do stormwater calculation. They don't look at projects for subdivisions and so forth. So, but if we can have a lender resource like we do on everything, we would do that as well. So I'm trying to give you a picture of looking at this very, very broadly. So I'll ask you that, the same question I asked my staff, are the things that we, as a municipality, should be providing that we don't, or we can do better if we had more resources? There's a lot of small things we do, right? I mean, you think of the small businesses in town, they have a resource with John Allen and people in workforce training or contact with Department of Labor. He's that guy. There's economic development training grants for workforce development. He's that guy. So we kind of fill the gaps as we see them come up. Because I don't want to just build it and just have it sit there. I want to be able to be responsive to what the community's needs are. But that's why I asked the question. So the last slide, the last part of this whole piece was listening to the community to see what we missed in terms of projects. Recreational facilities have been talked about anecdotally for a long, long time. Super Park wasn't on the list. It's been a warrant article. There's been committees. There is some funding for it. We think it comes full circle once the library starts construction. And then the results of the ADA transition plan for all municipal and school buildings are kind of things that are maybe further out or maybe inside 24, 25, so we need to start to think about. But these are the things that we kind of came up with anecdotally in terms of capital projects. And we want to add to it if people think we should add to it.
Has there been any discussion about expanding the senior center or the facilities within the municipal center for the senior center?
No, they're
Seems like every time
satisfied.
we go in there, they're pretty,
They're-
it's busy.
It is. They run a great program. They never turn anyone away. But the gym is adequate for programming. Outside is adequate. Parking is an issue, especially when those fields are being used.
Yeah.
So that's always a conflict. We're adding parking now. It's not going to solve it 100%.
Is that the stuff in the front?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's the ramp, and then there's probably 12 spaces either side.
Yeah. So, whatever, the sun.
Yeah.
See what we get.
So no, in terms of physical space for them, they're content and happy.
So what kinds of things do you see coming out of the ADA plan?
That's It's a big document. You read it in more detail than me.
Was that available to someone?
Yeah, it's online. The ADA study?
It's not, well, it is inside of a select board meeting packet, but I'll put it on
Yeah.
front page link.
So what they did is they prioritized this low-hanging, easy things that we can do. So door handles that are now round, it should be lever. So those, if we can do operational, we'll do those. People with vision impaired, you know, you could have a person walking with a cane who only detects what's here. There could be a fire extinguisher that would hit that. You know what I mean? Those things we need to put something underneath it so they can hit it with a cane or recess them into the wall, which are more expensive. And then ramps, which we're doing some of them now. And then all of the playground equipment, believe it or not, it's not about the fall zone where all of that mulch material is. It's getting a mat that's ADA compliant to the structure. And then you can still fall onto that chip material, but you can't traverse a mat in a wheelchair. That's not ADA compliant. That's going to be a huge thing. When we do all those things that they listed, we have to take those into consideration. Sure. Those are put together before we hit the study, so those numbers will be a little stale when we finally go with the rubberized mat to make people traverse to those places of apparatus or playground. So buildings are the big one, playgrounds are the other. Any other big ones you can think of?
Playgrounds, curb cuts, sidewalks, walk without foot hazards, not accessible, don't have the ramps. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, even just like, you know, where crosswalks are in the streets, if the slope in the street is too steep, technically you shouldn't, it's not a compliant sidewalk, or a compliant, yeah, crosswalk, so lots of little stuff, but when you start to add it up, that really gets big.
So to deal with that though, the Disability Commission's reconstituting itself. We want to give them that plan, and we want to be able to help them prioritize the items that are easy and quick, and then create a plan, much like this capital plan, and have a separate document that just lists out when we'll do things. There'll be things across the post office pub.
Is that a Grafton?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, it's a local, it was established in 2009, it fell off, no one met for a long time, people moved, Roger Trahan's championing it to bring it back, so I think he's got some membership who would might appoint as early as the 30th.
Okay.
So, but just by way of example, if you're on North Main Street, across the post office pub, right across the street, that curb reveal is, I'm exaggerating, 19 inches high, and then the slope into people's driveway, the pitch is 20 degrees. So you can't put a wheelchair over that.
Yeah.
So those things you need to just document how you're either going to fix it and when, or you're not going to, and why not. You know what I mean? So they need to do that. And once they do that, what'll fall out hopefully is a plan for what the prioritization schedule will be. And the plan, if you look at it, it did a pretty good job of giving you a very thick paragraph in terms of what the need is, and then it gives the dollar figure at the bottom. So you can be like, no, that's absurd. I can't believe that's the situation. I think you'd be shocked by the number it's going to cost to fix it. So, but it's a good plan. We didn't do the schools because we didn't have all the money. People might be critical of
It's
it.
good to have a list.
Why didn't you do the schools? We got a grant to do what we could do, and we didn't do anything else except for the polling places because we want to make sure our elections were fair and accessible.
Sure, that makes sense. So, do you guys have a plan for that?
I'll have to look into doing our own, the schools at some point.
So I have a question about the green communities money.
Yeah.
Like, would you put those projects on the capital plan or not? Like, I know we're changing out all the other lights, but moving forward, what projects are we going to focus on the green communities, like charging stations or other things?
Well, first answer, no, I wouldn't put them on here. But the LED lights for all of the overhead lighting for street lighting, that would be the first one. What is it, 175, 157, 157,000?
176.
So 175,000. And then other programs that we're going to do in future years, which Charging stations would be one, whether it's around the common or at the municipal center. Electric vehicles for administrative purposes and getting rid of the hand-me-downs that the police department give us, we move towards that. What other, a couple of quick ones, I mean, other ones for green communities? You can think of?
No, I'm trying to say things out.
There are some, I just don't recall them all. Those are the two biggest ones, or the three biggest ones.
So you expect us to come out of operation?
For which one?
So, well, the charging
Green
stations.
communities.
Green communities is a grant fund because we have a green community, so we have.
Fully funded?
I'm sorry?
Is that fully funded then, those projects?
No, they're not. It's competitive grant rounds, and we're applying right now. We've already applied. We're waiting on
Yeah, we're
approval
waiting to find out.
for the streetlights. So operationally, that'll bring that cost down. I'm gonna get in trouble for saying
It's
40%,
considerable.
but
Yeah.
you know, you gotta save a lot of money in electricity.
And we've already approved that for full.
Yes, but we made kind of a commitment verbally that we would spend the 175 unless we got some portion of it funded by green communities.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to think about. There's no end-all be-all here. There's no final answer. But I just thought we should just be in a room and hear it all one time and together and ask questions, answer questions, or come up with, you know, the strategy is either you're going to borrow it or you're going to keep kicking the can down the road. There's really no other answer. Any other thoughts? Final thought? I don't have any final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts? I'm glad some of my staff came. I appreciate that. We'll get this on the air as soon as Kate comes back up.
Thanks, this was great.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming. Thank you.